This video is going to be a quick review of one of the foundational documents that we're looking at in Chapter 2 within Unit 1. And this video focuses on James Madison's Federalist 10. So this is a Federalist paper. So basically, one of the major ideas behind it is that Madison is trying to convince people that there are certain benefits to supporting this newly proposed Constitution. So we're just going to go over a couple of the key concepts real quick that takes a pretty complicated document and makes it a little bit more understandable. So if you read Federalist 10, you will agree that the word faction is probably used like dozens of times. It's one of the focal points of the article is Madison's focusing on what a faction is. And really a faction is simply a fancy way of saying sort of like a political group. It's any group of people that have like similar opinions. So if you want to think of like modern day sort of like political parties. So he writes about like the presence of factions, of political groups within like society. So he did talk about the fact that there are like two ways that you could get rid of factions, especially if you feel like factions might have like a negative impact on society. The first is that you eliminate freedom of thought. So you take away the very thing that allows people to think differently, or you force everyone to think the same. So he would argue that like neither of these things are great. You don't want to take away the freedom that allows people to think differently, and you also don't want to have a society where everybody is forced to think the exact same way. So he basically acknowledges the fact that there always are going to be these factions or political groups within society, and we can't really eliminate them. So that like factors into the second point. One of his key points that Madison is trying to make is that there are reasons that the government that's going to be set up by the proposed Constitution, which is a representative democracy, right, where people essentially are electing representatives to on their behalf to make decisions for them, is going to work better in a large geographic area that has a large population like the United States, right? So that's the argument he's making, is that this type of government is going to work best in a large geographic area with a large population. So there's three reasons he really kind of covers that we're going to focus on. The first one kind of relates to the faction argument. It's like, well, we can't get rid of factions. So how might a larger democracy, right, a democracy in a large geographical area, how might this help control factions? So his argument is that in a larger country, right, with like there's going to be more people. If there's more people, there will be more factions. That just makes sense. There's more people, there'll be more groups. And there's more groups, these factions will divide up power between them and cancel each other out. So the idea is that in a larger geographical area, you're just going to have more people. If you have more people, you're going to have more of these factions or groups. And if you have more factions or groups, like they're just going to divide power up and cancel each other out. They're sort of compete against each other and like limit their overall influence. If you had a smaller society with fewer people and fewer divisions, like those groups might be larger and much more powerful and can abuse their power more easily. So by having a larger like territory to govern, you're going to have more groups, and these more factions, these more groups will like kind of cancel each other out. Second argument he makes is that a larger area with more people is better because you're likely to get like better politicians in a larger country with a larger population. Why? Because basically you're just going to have a larger pool of potential politicians to choose from. Makes sense, right? More people, the more potential people you have that are interested in running for office. And you just, hopefully, if you have a larger pool to select from, you're just going to have better candidates, right? We're just playing the odds. If we have a lot more people that are interested in running for office and to be politicians, hopefully that just increases like the good choices that'll potentially be available. And the last argument he makes is that he feels like it's going to be harder for deceitful politicians to get elected in a large country with a large population. Why? Because there's more voters, and that means it'll be tougher to trick more people. Then if it was a smaller like sort of area with less people, then maybe a cunning politician might be able to like trick like a smaller group of people into voting for them. But because we're talking about such a larger number of voters, it's just going to be tougher for one sort of like cunning, deceitful politician to trick a larger amount of people into voting for somebody they shouldn't vote for. So again, he talks about factions. They can't be eliminated, but the larger size country will help divide up power amongst the factions. And again, it'll also hopefully lead to a better pool of potential politicians to choose from. And more voters means it'll probably be harder to trick those people that actually are voting.